What is going on, guys? It is your boy Player X here with the semi-limited podcast. You already know what the deal is. You know what the vibe is when as soon as you saw that logo and you clicked that video and you knew that you were in for another great TCG podcast. So before we get into it, once again, just want to thank you guys for tuning into one of the best podcasts for the TCG this side of the Mississippi, or maybe even this side of the hemisphere. Who even knows? But on today's session, we'll be touching up on the Italian Nationals that went down in Bologna over the weekend. We have a new set to release, which is Battles of Legends Monster Mayhem, and what to expect from that later on this week. And even some of the crazy wild news from Konami themselves, as they basically cut off their hands to afford some rings. But before we get into all that, as you guys know, let's get into all these sponsored plugins. Please go to Linktree link in our description box below. You can follow all of our social sites there. Clicking that link will bring up a tab. You can follow all of it. Facebook, IG. I literally just got all of them interlaced and locked, so they're all streamlined now, a little bit easier. So good for that. We will be doing more giveaways as well. So be sure to follow us on all of our social sites like Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Discord, YouTube, all that stuff. Be sure to tag people, tag your friends, comment, share the episodes and stuff like that. We appreciate all the engagement. Also, shout out to Unplugged Gaming in Manlius, New York, for sponsoring the podcast. Be sure to join their Discord server as well in the description box below to be a part of their TCG communities. They actually recently had just switched store locations they're in the same plaza still, same general location, but they're not that same suite. They're the suite right next to it. So they're right next door to where they were before. So although they switched locations, they are still just as easily accessible as ever. So be sure to go down there. And if you do show up in person, be sure to tell them that the boys over at the Semi-Limited Podcast sent them. And I'll be sure to hook you up, all right? This episode of the podcast is also brought to us by Energy Drink City, because topping locals on 3 hours of sleep in a granola bar just ain't going to cut it these days. So be sure to use promo code PlayerX for 10% off your purchase at energydrinkcity.com to get your favorite boost of liquid energy delivered right to your front door. Or you can build your own personal energy drink crate just how you like. Basically like your own side deck. All gas, no bricks. But be sure to go check them out and use promo code PlayerX for 10% off. And also be sure to catch Brad, a.k.a. Mr. Perfect, live streaming every Saturday at Twitch. So at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So his Twitch will also be in our Linktree link down below. You'll be there, catch him doing a lot of the deck building, the theory and crafting, all that stuff. So be sure to catch him as well. And then also, just a quick little announcement before we go on. I decided that from here on forward, just to make things easier as far as like editing, recording, getting everything plotted out, if we're going to be a short episode, something probably under about a half hour, we're just going to be doing it audio. So that way it's just faster to record, edit, and then get it right back out to you guys. But if we have like special guests, or if we're going to go for like a crazy long time that we know of, we'll be sure to do video recordings, because that way we can take a little bit more time, get a little bit more into it. You guys can get your visuals in there as well. So we're going to be kind of going along with that general frame or structure for the time being, at least until things get situated in my life and they're a little bit more consistent and less so sporadic. But with all that out of the way, let's get into today's episode, guys. I know you guys have been waiting for a while for it. But we're going to start off with the Italian Nationals that went down over the weekend over in Bologna. So tons of players, tons of deck choices, very big variety of decks in the room. I managed to watch the last 3 rounds of day 1, if not the last 2. And then I did catch the semifinals onward for day 2. So the semifinals and the finals. The deck breakdowns for that weekend are interesting as well. For the entirety of the tournament, there were 23% Mitsurugi Raizio, 21% Malice. We had 10% Fire Kings, 8% Pure Mitsurugi, 6% White Forest, 6% Blue Eyes, 5% Memento, and then the remainder being classified as others. So, you never really quite know exactly when it's going to be popping up, as far as like it could have been more Rogue, more other engines kind of combined in, but not their own pure. So there was a lot of things in the room. If anyone was watching the streams, I know they saw a very big diverse portfolio of other styles of decks and strategies being implemented. Also, the tournament staff was awesome, because it's just those events run so smoothly, and I really do appreciate the structure and the work that really goes into the EU streams, because they are still miles miles ahead of any North American stream. The North American streams can also be running a little late. You're watching the same image for like 30 minutes at a time. It's just people walking around. There's no like interaction between like anything. There's nothing like you're learning, so I really do appreciate that the EU stream does like the guest cards. They come through and they'll show you like maybe an Edison duel or how a deck should be played. It's so much more enjoyable watching EU streams, and I'm so glad that they're all doing their nats like kind of in their one little strip, because I just love tuning in to watch it. So, but moving on, with 11 rounds of Swiss into a shift to Top Cut, a winner was eventually decided as the finals came down to the very favorite Raizio Mitsurugi deck versus a very popular rogue choice, especially as of lately with Memento. And after a pretty good paced finals, the winner was crowned, and Memento was basically the undisputed winner of Bologna. So it was a really good back and forth turn, or game one was a little long just because Memento lines are just crazy. But then game two, the Raizio guy quickly got in, and then game three just happened to be just a very good back and forth. They were seemingly doing good plays. It wasn't like I noticed any misplays or anything like that. So, but personally, I'm really tired of seeing Memento on Top Cut, if I'm being 100% honest. Calling it, hating all you want, you can call it whatever you want. But that deck is just not interesting to me. It's super long turns. There's like very convoluted lines of play where like one mistake and your whole end board is like completely smashed. It's an underwhelming end board to begin with, as you do, if I say so. Not to say that I know a crazy bit, but it's just super underwhelming to me. It reminds me a lot of like how Earth Machines was, where it's like ending on one or two things and like a couple set cards, but it's like there's nothing really to brag about. I know they play fairly well against the Charmies or under the Charmies and such, but that's just not enough merit to prove to me that it's worth being like one of the better picks this format. Like if you give Malice, even Blue Eyes, I'd pick before a Memento personally. I just feel like it's got more consistency. You can play around more. Although there are a lot of lines of plays in Memento, it's way too much. It reminds me of like DDD, like where it's just like you have to need a whole spreadsheet just to like do a basic combo. But yeah, if you guys like Memento, if you guys think that it's a good choice, if you guys thought it was a sleeper pick and you knew it was just going to win the event, feel free to comment your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's go back and forth, because I definitely cannot stand Memento. But if you guys have other opinions, let's go back and forth in the comments about it. But next up to bat for today is the upcoming reprint set, Battles of Legend Monsters Mayhem, or Monster Mayhem, I think. That is set to release June 13th, which is later on this week. This set includes hella reprints and even some new imported cards for the Gemini, Orcus, and even Fabled archetypes. Alongside these printings, or new printings, we have new rarities as well. So one of the newer rarities introduced to us is the Emblazed rare, which is going to be in this set, and it will also be included in every pack. So every pack will have one of these Emblazed rares. So out of 3 archetypes, they chose to give them to, I'm pretty sure it's like Orcus, Dragon Maids, and Punks, if I'm not mistaken. So each of those cards for their respective cores will come with like a little symbol embedded on the card text, almost like how the 25th anniversary stamp was kind of like in the middle of the card text. But it's kind of like to signify their brand by Sigma. So like every different archetype will have its own little Sigma, its own little brand. So that Orcus will have one, Dragon Maids as well as Punks. And to be honest, I think this is a pretty good idea on the low. It gives people who really love those archetypes, like me loving Orcus, a reason to go out there and get this product to bling out their favorite deck in a way that we've never really seen before. As well as gives others who love those archetypes something different that will basically set them apart from the flair of others. Like, yeah, some people got Starlight, some people have like the premium rares, which is like the collectors or the ultis or stuff like that. But like now you can go around and say, all right, cool, if you're an Orcus player like me, which I'm definitely going to go get these blazed rares, you can be like, all right, cool, I'm a diehard Orcus fan. You can put me in the Orcus clan. You know what I'm saying? So now you can kind of like represent and symbolize like your love for an archetype in by them having their own stamp, their own little Sigma, which I think is kind of cool. So I think I hope that it gets implemented again, because I think it's a really good idea, especially in future sets, maybe like reprint sets, even something like the Megatons that be coming at the end of the year. I think that's a little cool idea that they can throw in. I know they're going to be including more Starlights and stuff like that, but maybe a Starlight with like a little cool Sigma or like an embroidered little like image. I think that'd be pretty cool. But the Battles of Legends also brings us as much reprints as it does for these new rarities, I should say. So there are a bunch of cards that have solo prints right now that will also be having their reprints now. So these cards are including Absorb Fusion, Onomatopoeia, Lib the World Key Blade Master, Blaze Supreme Ruler of all Dragons, Necroquip Princess, Necros of Sophia, Necros of Decisive Armor, and Necros of a red, what the fuck? A red hair. Number 69 Heraldic Crest, Heraldic Reborn, Heraldic Unicorn Beast, Advanced Heraldic Art. Number 8, Heraldic King Genome Heritage, the Heraldic Beast Arrow Conway, Heraldic Beast Burner Falcon, Gem Elephant, Gem Knight Lady Lupus, Gem Knight Phantom Quartz, Primite Dragon Ether Barrel, Primite Dragon Drill Beam, Primite Lordly Load, Dragon Maid Ernest, Dragon Maid Noodlar, Dragon Maid Tick-Heck, Dragon Maid Welcome, Dragon Maid Downtime, Orcus Crescendo, Orcus Bombard, Long Gear Suit, Orcus Orchestrator, Jirachi the Punk Dangerous Gabi, Gagaku Punk Wagon. What the fuck are these names? Jury Rai Punk Madame Spider, Punk Jam Extreme Session, and Punk Jam Drive Dragon. So these were all cards that are solo prints that now have another accessible rare. So that way they're not so, I would say, expensive or leaning towards the expensive side because people don't have any access to them, or there's only one printing that's super old, especially those Necros cards, which only I think really came out in those old sets. I mean, they reprinted a couple of them, but not like the older ones. So it's good to have like the rest of the archetype kind of in a little bit more of an accessible print. So with all those being said, that means that there's a lot of future value that this set will probably hold if you're picking up these cards to hold, or just seeing what will happen to them in the future. Like even Necro Quip Princess, which was a common before, which needed a card for the Fiendsmith combo, might come out at like 50 cents or something like that. But when people start slowly wanting their shiny cards, or when the Fiendsmith combo starts gaining more popularity, doesn't get hit in the ban list or something like that, these cards can all go up. Blaze, Supreme Ruler of all Dragons, was like a $7 card, could go up. I remember the Heraldic Crest, which was like the number 69, the one that they sent off of the X Rizio. That one was like a $7 rare because it just didn't have any other printing. Especially the Primite cards, Drill Beam, Ether Barrel, Lowly Load, those are all good cards which will still go up if you are trying to go pick them up. So this set overall I don't think is a bust. As I'm not saying it's like a bust by any means, but I do think that it will take some time for the true value of the set to really show through. But I would definitely suggest picking up any of the cards listed that I just said beforehand at any locals or in-person events, because they will go up at some point again, especially if they're not reprinted. Also, speaking of ideas from Konami, although this next reprint set wasn't a bad one, the next topic that we're going to be talking about for today, which is probably the last one, is probably one of Konami's worst ideas that I myself have probably ever heard from them. So, for those who don't know, last week, I think, Konami officials released a statement about the new updates to the Time Wizard events and how they're usually held at tier 2 or higher events. But they now updated basically how they're going to be run and how we are going to be participating in them for the most part. This update basically sabotaged the momentum, the drive, and the fun that certain people were having with these past formats, like Go, Edison, what is it, the Synchro Plant, or whatever the hell it is. But basically, Konami stated that the new basically update is that starting after the NAWCQ, so starting after Nats for everyone who are here in North America, all Time Wizard events will be using current and up-to-date game mechanics and current and up-to-date card text. I'm going to say that one more time for you guys. They will be doing current game mechanics for old formats, including time rules, and current card text for older formats, even if that card worked a different way back then, which is what made it probably so powerful. So, this is a huge deal for that community. With the updated game mechanics, that means that Go players can no longer draw one card to start the game. They're going to start with 5 and play as we do it the modern way, which makes no sense because that's what they did back then. Now, and as mechanics like activation priority, so calling priority in Edison is a thing of the past now. So you can't even do things like that. So now cards like Book of Eclipse or Book of Moon, the Bottomless Trap Hole, just to name a few because I don't know a lot of them, but all those are inherently way more popular now, or going to be way more powerful, I should say, because your opponent cannot call priority when you flip these down. I think that's crazy big because that also means there's no pre-errata cards either. So if the card has received errata within the last 27 years of the game coming out, the most recent text is what will be used no matter what format you're in, which means old school cards like Goyo Guardian, which required generic materials to summon before and was a powerhouse staple in certain turbo decks, will now require an Earth Tuner to summon it because the card had received an errata since its release that requires it to have an Earth Tuner, which basically makes it super unplayable back then because there aren't a lot of Earth Tuners to use to go into it. So this makes huge differences to the players who will now be deck building and having to play moving forward around all of these new rules. And just to like show that I'm not actually like, lying like that, here's a very quick list via House of Champs. I was watching one of his videos and he showed up some of the immediate changes from the past formats that you have to realize will now be taking place after Nats. So Raikou now doesn't target. So it pops Fortress and Tyrannel. There's no priority. So Book of Moons are basically a god card now. Zero, absolute zero, does not trigger when getting compulsed because it used to work when it left the field, period, it would still activate. That's not the case anymore. 3 rivalry and 3 goes in. So basically, frogs are ass. Aaron doesn't trigger flips. If you crow a Dandelion, there's no tokens now because it's no longer in the same spot. Goyo Guardian basically isn't a card anymore because it can't be played. Future Fusion Errata means that the dragons that were playing it are unplayable because they now have to wait to send those materials. Bryu, Brain Control, Rescue Cat, Red MD all got errated, so they're basically not as strong as they are before, with Brio being a non-target bounce. Brain Control was receiving having to target a normal or set monster or something like that, and then Rescue Cat being once per turn now, Red MD being once per turn. Craziness. You got cards like Trap Hole and Raigeki Break being God's card now because there's no more priority. And then Gores and Stardust are just basically like the best ones that you can probably go into. So it's like there are a lot of changes that these players have to now kind of circumvent and go around moving forward that they didn't even ask for. This is very, very weird coming from Konami. This is by far one of the stupidest decisions they've ever made. I can understand the difficulties of finding judges that like understand those older rulings as compared to like how those cards work now, but because you can like go and pay certain judges to like judge just those kind of like situations, those games, those formats. You don't have to go and change everything up because not everyone knows how it works. You know what I'm saying? Just find the ones who do and keep them like tight to the belt. But like it completely changes the format and its mechanics, literally just gutting the community from something that they love. Like the people who suffer the most are the ones who chose not to play Modern for whatever reason, whether it be too much brain power or maybe it's too expensive to get into it, or maybe they just didn't like the format. They just liked going older, like maybe slower progress of how the game progressed. But they will now have to go out and either get current cards for their older decks, so go out and purchase new products, trade, spend more money that they didn't really have to, or even worse, they have to make their older cards basically obsolete so that there's no demand to play them because now I would be able to trade my old card for a new card, but if they're not going to be using the old cards, then why even have them? Like, yeah, cooler collectability and stuff like that. I'm just talking about in like a practicality. Why even bother to go find these older cards if you're going to have to play the updated text anyway? So now they're going to have to go out and spend more money on cards that they already had to play a format that was already deceased. Like I don't understand why they would make that. And I'm not even an Edison player, but my heart goes out to you guys for basically getting fucked for no good reason. Besides, it seems like Konami is just being lazy, doesn't want to put more money or more resources into something. And although we've had other players making decisions to stick to like old cards and rules for like locals play and casual play. I saw a bunch of posts on Zodiac saying, "Oh, well, this doesn't mean anything. We're just going to be doing our casual thing by ourselves." But like, yeah, that's cool and stuff. But you do realize that that means that it wouldn't be a Konami sanctioned event, so there's no backing towards it from Konami whatsoever. There's no prize support, no OTS packs, none of that shit. Like, you don't get anything for it. And you're not even really supposed to be putting money up to go play there. Like, you can't even just to play for money, because that's technically considered gambling, and you'll get your OTS and a whole bunch of trouble. So it's really just fucking the Edison players, and there's no real cut reason as to why this happened. I would really love to hear not only your guys' thoughts and opinions, especially the Edison players who are most affected by these changes, but also from Konami about why they would do something like this. Was this incentivized? Was there a reason for it? Was it a headache? Is it because you just don't care? We just need to know, because this was a big change that they made that they didn't tell anyone about. And I think that they should have given us at least a reasoning as to why, if you're going to make big changes like this, because you're just going to upset a whole bunch of people. They're going to be confused. They're not going to have answers. They're going to feel left in the dark. And this is not the way to carry a company with such die-hard fucking fan base for your product. Like, this is just not. And I hate to leave it on a bad note, but with that being said, guys, we are starting to run out of life points. I appreciate you guys tuning in, as you guys normally do. I know we were getting a little bit too intense there at the beginning of it, just because I really wanted to make sure that you guys understood how severity some of these changes are. But, you know what I'm saying? Don't worry about that. We'll have to press on with it. You know, life continues on, and we'll have to just duck with every punch. So, with that being said, as usual, remember to click that Linktree link down below, join all of our social sites and our platforms, be a part of everything, so that way you never miss out on the next episode. Be sure to join Unplugged Gaming's Discord server, or go pop up in there at Manlius, New York, Unplugged Gaming, to go be a part of all their TCG communities and support one of the best local game stores we got in this side of the state. And as well as going to energydrinkcity.com and using promo code PlayerX for 10% off your order. Whatever it is, the bundle, singles, whatever it is, it's cheap. They set it right to your door, and it's the least amount of hassle for you guys. All right. With all that being said, guys, be sure to check in next week as we go over some of the things we're going to be looking for Nats, as well as any other information that Konami might want to release to us, maybe like a ban list or something like that. But we'll see how it goes. But we're all out of life points now. Thank you so much for listening, guys. I am Player X, and you've been listening to the Semi Limited Podcast. Thank you, and good night.